How we doing, guys? It's Mitch back with another one for you. Today we're going to be talking about how to give yourself some better ability to fish spoons for steelhead, and specifically from shore. All right, now it's fall. All right, fall's here, so all the steelhead are starting to come closer to shore and feed on those bait fish as they get ready to stage and then run up the river when the rain hits and the cold weather hits. All right, and now what you have is a prime time to really get at them. But what you have to be able to do is you have to cast far. All right, one, you got to really be able to zing a bait out there. Casting 20 yards is not going to get it done. All right, you might catch a fish, but really you need to be looking at being able to cast 40 plus yards, 50 plus yards, and that's on the low side. The further you can cast, the further you can get your bait away from shore, the better off you are. Now, you can fish some baits which are more typical for something like this called casting spoons, right? And these are heavily weighted spoons. This one right here is a little Cleo, excuse me, 2/3 ounce. So it's got some size to it, it's got some heft to it. You can zing this bait pretty far out if you've got the right setup for it. All right, and I'm not going to get into those particulars, but what I'm going to talk about is a better way to use spoons that you wouldn't typically be able to use. So you can use something like this, all right, but then you're gonna have to go buy a whole arsenal of these. All right, now if you are a guy who fishes from a boat a lot, or you are a guy who doesn't necessarily have to use, wouldn't have a reason to have a bunch of casting spoons, but you might have trolling spoons, something like a stinger, for example, well then that's a different story. And I've got a great way for you to be able to use these without going and having to buy all these. All right, so I've got a handful of casting spoons, but I don't typically use them. Instead, what I use is my actual trolling spoons, and I do that because I have a bunch of trolling spoons. We do a lot of trolling, we do a lot of fishing, but I don't always get the chance to take the boat out, right? So if I'm not going to be taking the boat out and I need to be casting from shore, well, then I need a setup that allows me to cast trolling spoons, flutter spoons, a lighter spoon far, really far, right? And so that means incorporating weight somehow. So what I do is I use a 7-foot, a 7.5 foot, or an 8-foot rod, whichever my casting rods I have set up for this cause. Typically speaking, the more rod you have, the easier it is to be able to kind of haul back and really zing that bait out. And allow that rod to really do all that work for you, so you're not really having to muscle on it. So it's nice to have that extra weight. Now, how in the world do you take something like this little spoon that weighs nothing? I mean, this is a 1/4 of an ounce, and that's not even a 1/4 of an ounce, it's an 1/8 ounce. How do you cast an 1/8 ounce jig 50 yards, 60 yards, 70 yards? You don't do it, is the answer, right? And you're not going to be able to cast this, especially into the wind, which a lot of times, especially here on Lake Erie out of Cleveland, we're facing winds coming from Canada, from coming south towards us, and it just really beats down your lure in the wind. And when you're fighting the wind and you're already only casting 40 yards, well, now you're casting 20 yards or 30 yards, and that just makes it for very inefficient fishing. And again, I keep hounding this point and keep saying it, I'm all about being efficient, really. So being able to zing your bait out there further makes more sense. Also, not having to buy another 30 of these or 20 of these, so you have every color and size you could possibly want, which is something that I do. Gotta have them all, right? Can't have just one. It's not very cost effective, right? You're only going to use them for a couple weeks out of the year, but you have these, and you're using these all summer long to pound walleye and to chase steelhead as well. So why not use them now in this situation? How do we adapt that, right? And it's pretty simple, actually. All you need is inline weights. All right, so these are inline weights. I fish these a lot in a lot of different ways, and so obviously these have barrel swivels in them. This is an important key to these. And just a couple years ago, these were not very common. It was very difficult to find them. A lot of times I had to buy them online, which is I don't prefer to do. I prefer to shop local as much as possible. But thankfully, I've been finding them more and more often in stores. The only downside is they don't typically have a ton of sizes yet, but that's coming. I've seen, I first started seeing them in stores in the area, local bait shops, like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, but it was only one or two sizes. It'd be like an eighth ounce and a quarter ounce, or an eighth ounce and a 3/8 ounce, or something like that. And now I'm starting to see a selection of sizes, which is very good to see, because this is a very underrated piece of terminal tackle for you. All right, you can use this out on the boat trolling. All right, in line with the spoon to get it down to depth, or in this case, you can hook this up with a couple snaps, and you can make a great casting rig and great way to add weight to your rig to cast these spoons out. Now, there's some guys out there that say you don't use weight on these spoons. Well, yeah, you do. You do, one way or the other. You're using some kind of snap inline weight, or you're using some kind of diving unit, whether it's a jet diver, whether it's a tadpole, whether it's a dipsy diver, whatever it is. You're using something to get it down, right? Now, that piece of weight is great because when you're trolling, it kind of gets it back and away from the boat, but you don't have to cast it, right? You never are in a situation where you need to cast that rod out because you're trolling. You don't need to do it. But in this situation, we need to be able to cast these. So tying a simple snap onto your main line, and then connecting it to one end of this, all right, allows this second end to be free. Now this second end's free, and now we just take a leader, and real simple. Obviously this has already got swivels in it, which is great, so you don't absolutely have to have a swivel on this, or a snap swivel I should say, but I prefer to use one. Now the way I hook this leader up is pretty simple. I have at one end just a snap, all right? You've got a snap here, and then over here we've got a snap swivel. All right. Now this is a, I don't know, 4-foot leader, fluorocarbon. It's about all I use. My main line's going to be mono with this, so I don't have to worry about impacts, breaks. Really, I'm worried about knot strength at this point, or something of that nature, or just having it take in the line a little nick or something of that nature. So I'm going to take this weight. I'm going to hook this to my main line with a snap. I'm going to snap on this leader that I pre-tie and have set aside with one of these, which I've shown you guys before. I love these things. These are great for pre-tying anything you need. And then I'm going to take this one with the snap swivel end, and I'm going to hook this right up to my stinger spoon, and now all of a sudden I'm able to cast this stinger spoon farther than guys that have these little Cleos, all right? Because I can change the amount of weight over here, all right? So I can put a ½ ounce, I can put an ounce inline weight on, all right? And that allows me to just zing a bait out there with an 8-foot rod or a 9-foot rod, or 7-foot even. I can just zing a bait out there real far. And what I'm able to do is I'm able to fish these spoons that I typically fish, and I know how they fish, and I'm able to fish them, right? I have these. I have a bunch of these. Why not use them? This is a simple technique that allows you to use your trolling spoons. And the other big thing is action, all right? That's the piece most of these people don't focus on, is action of the bait. So this real heavy spoon, do you think it acts the same in the water that this light spoon does? The answer is no, it does not. All right, this bait will flutter, but it's gonna sink too, right? It's gonna sink a lot quicker than this one will, right? Because it's heavier, it's denser, all right? And so when this one's fluttering, you gotta crank it to keep it at the same weight, a lot more than you would have to crank this one. And when this one comes to a stop, and when this one comes to a stop, they act different. This one's gonna flutter too, but it's gonna want to sink hard, and it's gonna flutter on its way down, but it's gonna sink. And this one's gonna it's gonna flutter a lot more. It's gonna be more like a feather compared to a bowling ball falling. They're gonna go down maybe the same speed. Really, they're not gonna go down the same speed because of density and because of surface area and everything else, yada yada. Physics. No one likes physics. We're just here to fish, right? um, so what I'm able to get is I'm able to get a presentation that's more of a finesse presentation out of these trolling spoons, zinging them like this as opposed to this. Now, we have weight in the line, all right? So weight is going to affect it. It's not like I'm just casting this all the way out there and just retrieving this and slowly retrieving this, right? I've got basically an anchor tied a little up the leader from this spoon, all right? And this anchor is going to affect the way it swims. It's invariable. It has to happen, right? So what happens though, basically, you can pretend it's like this. When I stop reeling, all right, and I let tension off basically the line by not pulling it, this is going to sink this weight. But when it sinks here. So it's still pulling down. It's pulling this bait down. But at least the bait's able to still flutter and kind of hang out in the water profile, whereas this one's just going to sink itself. So we're able to get just a slightly different presentation, but more importantly, we're able to use something we already have, and something that can be a lot cheaper at times than these. And we're also able to get a different presentation. And when you got 50 guys lined up on the rocks, zinging spoons out there, you want to have something a little bit different. If you know there's fish there and they're not hitting, what do you do? You switch up the presentation, you switch up the bait, right? You switch up the colors. But if there's 50 guys out there zinging spoons, you know everyone's going to have, there's going to be at least 25 different color patterns, right? There's no way there's not 25 different color patterns. And so if there's 25 different colors out there and you're the 51st guy, but you're throwing a different type of spoon than those guys, because they're all throwing casting spoons, and you're throwing a trolling spoon, it might just be the trick you need to catch a big one, and that might be all you need. So yeah, this is just something I came up with that I thought was really great and kind of had to share with you guys. You know, let me know what you think about it. Let me know, get out there and try it. Tell me what you think. Use it. Let me know if you have any luck. If you don't, and of course, as always, man, let me know how you think you can improve it, how we can improve it. And let's make this an open forum, basically. In the meantime, like, share, subscribe, let everyone know if this was worth your time watching, and I'll be back for some more later. All right, you guys be safe, take care, enjoy the weekend.